Welcome back, fellow armchair generals. This is Gamer 1745 here with my continuing playthrough of Hearts of Iron 3 with Black Ice 8.52. And as you're most all well aware, we have a new 8.53, the most probable last least expansion of Black Ice has been out. Not saying it's the last version in the sense that obviously it's out. They may find some bugs and fix them, but no new features, events, other significant things are planned for development, which is both sort of sad and sort of gladdening. Sort of sad that it's, we're not going to be seeing more of that. Sort of glad I don't have to make another update for Third Reich events just because they're, thought of some new thing to put out there. So, because trust me, that's been fun to play, fun to make, but also sort of maddening to try to keep up with it. But no, I'll tell you right now, I have not even downloaded the new version. I am going to see if I can finish up a little bit of the work I'm doing on my expansion to the political structure mod for Hearts of Iron 4 that I've made. Sort of later this week to see if I can finish polishing up at least most of that, and then so probably well, this week, now that you're seeing this, because I think this may be going up Monday or something, it's right now Thursday, a couple days after the election, just for you watching it a year from now, so you know when I made this, so that I will see about maybe getting started at looking at got to make the patch elements. Some of the files, they're big huge files there that are a bunch of like German events, and just whether it be a few times it's personal preference, I just didn't like the way they did something, or try to integrate it in with something that I need to do. The parts that I changed may have not been changed at all, but I just need to change that, and they may have added a bunch of other stuff. That will need to happen. I have a few events made, completely there and working. I have some other stuff that is sort of, shall we say, half made that I sort of stopped working on once I really got Hearts of Iron 4 out and working on Third Reich events for that I want to go back and finish up, including, I think it's important to tell, that's added more to the story of, and I know I'm going to talk here for a few seconds, but or a minute or two or whatever, but the German involvement with the Arabs. I've seen a couple of documentaries on the subject. I've of course collected every single picture I could ever find. Oh, guy, and it's slipping. The Grand Mufti of Jerusalem. I'm forgetting his name. Sort of mid to late war, he was in Germany, and a lot of pictures of him with Himmler and the SS, and he's encouraging mostly Bosnian Muslims to join the Waffen-SS. And a few of those, because he's made magazine covers and others, a few of those have showed up in some of the documentaries, and they talked about some of the post-war Nazi escapees, including Otto Skorzeny for a while was in Egypt setting up the sort of modern Egyptian army under Nasser, and their sort of anti-Semitic bias that they were putting in there. Now this, the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem, and if somebody wants to try to pick it apart, they might be able to a bit, but basically he, to some degree, or some of his immediate followers and successors, are the people that started the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt, as distinct from Nasser and Anwar Sadat. They were both Egyptian army officers, rather Muslim, but rather secular Muslims, that were anti-British and anti-King Farouk, wanting to setting up an Arab republic. Notice I've shifted terms sometime between Arab and Muslim, because those are just some distinctions here. setting up an Arab Republic instead of the Kingdom of Egypt. But so these documentaries have looked at that. Now we have to realize Germany had a lot of secret operations going on. Part of the reason for a lot of the secret operations was, I know we're doing a British series, but still talking about this, because there were so many organizations going on. Because there was the Abwehr, which was basically military intelligence, not just army, headed by Admiral Canaris through most of this period. So it was sort of military intelligence. There was, of course, and I don't know specifically the name, but exactly how it worked, quite honestly, I haven't really looked at it. But the basic diplomatic service has an intelligence system going just purely by its existence, because the embassy in Budapest or something will just gather up all the newspaper article, all the newspapers and all of the magazines and whatever else, and ship them back to Germany for archival and study for people who are studying Hungary and what's going on in Hungary. And reports, somebody gets elected, or somebody loses an election, or a cabinet minister gets fired, or there's a scandal, just all those kinds of things, as well as their own, shall we say, intelligence going. I don't know how much they ran secret operations, the Foreign Office versus the Abwehr, but they are going on and connecting with people. There was also the SD, which is I'm not even going to pronounce it right offhand, but it's part of the SS, but it's the security service, and some of the elements there. The Gestapo was mainly sort of internal and occupation forces, but there's the SD Ausland, which means, and I'm sure I'm butchering it, sorry Germans that are watching, foreign operations, that they were operating outside of German-controlled areas. Because generally speaking, and again, you might be able to pick this apart somewhat, but there weren't Gestapo agents running around, unlike in some of the movies, running around Britain at any time, even during peace. It was sort of the Ausland SD elements that were doing that stuff. So they were operating in intelligence operations. And then there was the NSDAP, the initials for the Nazi Party, OA/OA, and part of that is, I believe, Ausland, but it's sorry, I'm butchering that. But the OA group, which for a while was headed by Wilhelm Gustloff, overall, but he was also obviously working in Switzerland as well. This is an organization that was set up by the Nazi Party to organize Germans, not, shall we say, Austrians, not ethnically German Swiss or ethnically German Hungarians, but people, shall we say, holding German passports, documented in that sense, Germans living in foreign territories. Well, that's what it was on the surface. That's what they always claimed to be. But when they showed up in places, there was often, and this is some of the areas that I know about, is showed up in South Africa at about that time. The German community here in Southwest Africa, that former colonies, because a lot of them, unlike the other parts of the colonies, a lot of the Germans that were there stayed in Southwest Africa with the changeover. Nazi movements start popping up there. In the Afrikaner, sort of basically Dutch or Dutch-German, but bit more Dutch than German, but sort of confusing, group, there's a sort of the South African National Party, which is, the names, sometimes they put Christian in it, and it's sort of different than the later ones during the apartheid era, though there is some connection. But this party used a swastika, sort of a bluish field with a white center, with sort of an orangish reddish, I don't know whether it's faded or just, but it's very similar to the South African sort of color swastika in the center flag that was going on, that got very popular. But that all starts showing up when the NSDAP OA starts showing up there. There was a chapter which I found some letterhead for in India. There were chapters all over South America, particularly in Argentina, that were primarily, as well as in the U.S., organizing German citizens, but they connected with local Germans as well as other local National Socialists. So this is an intelligence operation that's going on as well. Again, I'm not saying that I know that the NSDAP OA was running a lot of secret agent spy operations, trying to infiltrate the local defense establishment to get the plans for the naval defenses for wherever. I'm not quite saying it's that kind of spy intelligence. It's just coordinating, facilitating local support for Nazism, particularly with the NSDAP OA. We're doing so all these different agencies, and sometimes it was counterproductive because they were fighting each other. Theoretically, and I know this to some degree in this part of Europe, sometimes, as well as in Switzerland, sometimes say I don't know, theoretically, the SDOA is supporting one fascist/Nazi movement, and the NSDAP OA is supporting a different, giving money, facilities to print flyers, whatever it might be, to a different one, and they're sort of having an inter-rivalry effect at times as well, spending as much time, instead of organizing and expanding each other, fighting each other, as trying to take over the legislatures of the local countries. So that's sort of sometimes counterproductive. Well, we now know, because I found in a few of the players who were very helpful in translating some of the stuff, that well, so all these operations were going on. Sorry, I'm jumping around a little bit here. And obviously the Germans, if you know anything about them, especially at this time, they made files on everything. They documented everything, after action type reports, all kinds of stuff going on. Huge amounts of paperwork in multiple copies. They're very meticulous about this, even about things they wanted to keep secret, like the final solution that was generally wanted to be kept secret from the general populace, at least. So they were doing all this type of stuff and keeping documents. Well, there's a lot of gaps in our knowledge, and way back, well, back even in the 1980s, I sort of presumed with some of the books on uniforms and whatever, that these are rather authoritative books, that they knew all that they knew. They knew all that there was to know about the subject, because, they just got a hold of their records, and now they might, because in a lot of the older books they have some of the badges, there's hand-drawn pictures of the badges. Okay, so, okay, they may have not all survived the war, but we have the records, and we have photographs, and we sort of know what it is. Well, come to find out, and I deal with some forums that deal with collecting firearms, uniforms, and other things like that. They're still digging up new information from original records that no one has bothered to read since 1945 or whenever, that whether the U.S. has captured them or their records in Germany, but original source material that none of these scholars had access to, that wrote some of these other books. These are just uniform, mostly, regulations and changes and things like that, and then they're often comparing the regulations to identifiable pictures to place and date, and seeing variations from what was officially at that point. So there was that. Now, secret stuff, when you're losing a war, you generally destroy. So between bombings of cities, which had to destroy lots of important things, including records, but also artworks, books, and other things like that. Sort of the necessary bad elements of a war, but as well as people dying. But so a lot of records, I'm sure, got destroyed in the destruction of Berlin and other places. The Germans themselves were destroying all kinds of records at different stages. And then what the U.S. government sweeped up that were records, shall we say, from an SD headquarters somewhere, whether in Berlin or in Bavaria or down in Munich or wherever it may be, that even those still may have not generally been allowed to have scholars access to, and if other people may have just never got around to them. So I'm not even so there's a lot of stuff missing that way on our knowledge in Germany, through Germans wanting to conceal it, as well as war damage. But I found an article dealing with the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem, and Germans contacting him, ostensibly for a magazine article about the conflict between the Arabs and the Jews in this part of the world in 1938. Well, you don't, and this guy who is at times under house arrest from the British, definitely a foe of the British occupation of Palestine, also a foe of the Jews moving into Palestine as well, a vehement anti-Semitic. And I would say that I'm sure that, and if not everyone's going to agree with this, but I'm sure most Arabs that were Muslims, because not all Arabs are Muslims in this part of the world, but all the Muslims, Arabs, sort of had a chauvinistic outlook for themselves, and Islam as sort of being the best. But I don't think there was a ingrained, deep anti-Semitism. There may have been a greater anti-Christian element, though there's a lot of Arab Christians in here, but because they're occupiers to one degree or another in Egypt and Palestine and wherever, were Christians. It was they definitely viewed things in religious sort of terms, but I don't think there was as deep and ingrained anti-Semitism. It was this Grand Mufti of Jerusalem that I think, although there's no writings in this, and again that's why I say I think as opposed to I know, why the reporter's getting access to him. The reporter is being driven around or escorted while driving around to various Muslim camps, and that he needs the escort to keep the Arabs from shooting at him, because they were shooting at Europeans showing up around some of these areas. We're getting access because I think at this point in 1938 already Germany is financing this anti-Semitic Arab movement that takes off and gives us our troubles today. So that is sort of one of the important elements that I found. And again, it's not like I found it on equivalent of an eBay, selling the magazine cover, photograph of the cover and a few things, and that kind of thing. So it's not like it's secret, but it just, I hadn't heard that they were doing it in 38 or late 37, 38. I'm gonna have to look up the dates, but it, that early that they were in that contact. I knew that they were in contact in like 43 when he was up in Germany, and through to the end of basically the end of the war. I knew they were contacting him then, and I knew they had various operations once Germany was assisting Italy in the fight in North Africa, because Germany sets up a various sort of Arab manned units. You see a lot of pictures. A few of them are sort of black Arabs or sub-Saharan Africans that are enculturated into Arab culture, meaning they speak Arabic, they're Muslims, but they're racially sub-Saharan Africans. You know, sometimes, you know, so that's how you get black men in German army uniforms that have swastikas on them. They're not in the SS or anything like that. But these units were only really formed as units after Rommel starts into operating in here in 1941. And that's sort of when I thought Germany was starting to really pay attention to what was going on in here. Though I also had found on another source, and it's supposedly real, it is a Nazi flag, and it's a sort of a Gau flag, or whatever, that has a the up in the corner. It's, you know, it's a big sort of, you know, big red flag, Nazi thing in the center. It's, you know, the sort of standard kind of thing that they carry. It's not the sort of smaller Deutschland awake kind of banner thing, but it's the sort of the bigger flag kind of thing that they would carry. You see mass carryings and, you know, Triumph of the Will kind of thing. But up in the corner, about 6 by 4 inches or something, they normally have a city or a region name on it. Well, this is Haifa. That was for the German Nazis are living in Palestine at the time, and this is pre-war, and this has survived. So that we know that they were operating here pre-war, and I think that's an important thing, that they were building up what is affecting. And you can go Arab-Israeli conflict, of course, and of course they're so they start like hating Jews. Well, yeah, but why is that important to people in Saudi Arabia? Why is that important to people in Iraq or Egypt or Libya? You know, the anti-Semitist element of it. Why do they bomb targets in Argentina still to this day? It's more of, I would say, it's more than just who owns what piece of land. And if you look at what I talked about earlier, and King Farouk and that dynasty that moves into be kings of Iraq instead of the House of Saud, because they were down here in this part, their tribe. This becomes the House of Saud down here, is ruling that part of Arabia, that King Farouk and his tribe that follows up to Damascus. Oh, right, of course, here. Up to Damascus, you remember some of the scenes in the movie of Lawrence of Arabia trying to operate it. The tribe, to some degree, my understanding is they move into, along with the king, it's not just the king showing up, move into Iraq. There, before the, I'm sure that there are farmers or herders that have been many generations in Palestine. I'm not disputing any of that. But before 1918, 1919, this was all Ottoman territory. A lot of the Arabs were being shifted around. There wasn't any sort of national identity sense that, oh, I'm a thought out. There was, I'm tribe X or I'm tribe Y. There was most assuredly that. And then, oh, well, yes, I am an Arab. And like I've talked before about city Arabs, I know this is going long, sorry. City Arabs that were, you know, rather urbanified, and not the farmers and not the herders and not the sort of tribal groups that moved around the desert Arabs. I'm trying not to stereotype that all Arabs are one way. But they weren't identifying themselves as, oh, I'm Iraqi, or I'm Syrian, or I'm Palestinian. Egyptian maybe, because Egypt is sort of a big thing. But most of them, they weren't identifying themselves that. So buying in that these guys are such hard-bitten Palestinians, no, they're Arabs who lived in Palestine. Now, it's been exacerbated by the ones that have fled to Egypt, weren't allowed into Egypt. Those that fled, they were allowed to go into the Egyptian territory here in Gaza, so that had been Egypt until fairly recently, or into camps in other parts of there, but they were kept in camps. The ones that have fled into Jordan have not been allowed into Jordan. They have to daily live in their camp. Generally speaking, they're not even allowed out to work, so they live in refugee camps. Now, the refugee camps, my understanding, many of them, for the region, they're pretty decent housing now. They've been there since 1960 something or other, and how many generations they're living in these camps. But they're not part of the Jordanian society, though they were for a while in camps, but now they're no longer in camps in Lebanon and some of the other places. So their Arab neighbors weren't allowing them to integrate into their society. So again, I'm going that there's more than just who owns what piece of territory. And we're fighting this here. Okay, we've won that battle. Good. Part of the reason I bring it up is because we're coming out with a new TRE, but also we're still fighting. We're fighting in that part here. Okay. Shifted in some more air power here. What? Oh, come on. Okay, there we go. Just because I want to make sure that we... Uh-oh. Okay, we got Grasso. We lost up here. Okay. Yeah, but we have more troops showing up. They're fresh. We may have won or lost that battle, but that's just because our units have showed up piecemeal. We still may lose it. Trying to push them off balance as much as I can. Ground attack, so Blizzards, okay. And then shift these guys up here to hopefully better cover this part of the world. Now we are also check out. Yeah, well, the Soviets are pushing in. Germans haven't at least been able to retake Crimea. Though the Soviets have pushed a little bit here and there. So that's presumably taking up units and stuff. I've given my allies, Australians, the US, some objective places to sort of hope they help out somewhat here. Well, we've won Bangkok again. Well, we're in reasonable good shape there. I'll send you back. You take a long time moving forward, so get going back. Okay, and they're attacking us here. And destroyer crew training. You know what we're gonna do is really helps us, but what we're going to do is shift even more leadership into officers. So as a few of these other ones get done, we'll just stop giving me all those reinforcements, most assuredly. Now this is just that sort of mess of sending out a lot of supplies to the wrong place and then sending them back. But it could be detrimental to us for a while. Okay, well. Keep these guys moving forward. At least the ones that are in relatively good shape. Uh-oh, another... Yeah, but we're sending more. See why these guys are retreating. I'm not sure. These are too well organized, in my opinion, to warrant retreating. Well, that I understand. Looks like we're doing all right there. Reasonably so. Here I'm a little worried about. Okay, looks like all of our units that need to retreat have retreated well enough. Let's see what these guys can do when we get attacking. Good, they're attacking some sort of headquarters guard. Looks like. And these guys have been driven back, but hopefully they'll fill the breach. Yes. So as you can tell, I think, oh good, I'm quite happy about working again on Third Reich events for Hearts of Iron. Three, uh-oh, just shattered. These guys are cut off. Let's ground attack there. Attack up there, regain a path to supplies. Heavy bomber ground crew training, so we're gonna cancel that. But that helps our ground crew. We have not been using heavy bombers much, partly just because don't know quite how useful when against some of these huge stacks of air defenses, and also because they weren't well organized up, and that does matter. Okay, well they're retreating. Man, they're getting hit by a lot of units. Let's see if we can hit here. For some good effect. Yeah, that might be alright. Okay, stop that attack. And that we're doing alright with one Baghdad, so let's push with these guys up north there, just like that counterattack. And some of these guys down here to keep them from like plunging. Down. And good. Now they move their capital up to crit. Oh good, we pushed out. Oh man, look how beat up those guys are. Das Reich is having to fall back. Yeah, we're losing a lot of stuff here. I'm gonna fall them back, and I may even fall him back as well. I don't want to lose. I don't want my supplies to be cut off. Uh-oh, another Axis Sally, losing organization, regain rate, and land organization, which isn't good. And another major defeat here. Okay, well, stop your attacks. Okay, just this one division. Stop that attack. No longer serving a good purpose. Okay, between talking a lot and letting this go on, it's sort of fun, but time to end the episode. Thanks so much. Thanks for liking the videos, of course. Thanks for posting comments, questions, and hopefully we can keep this channel from dying. So please tell a friend, go post somewhere on some forum. Got to be someplace that why somebody should come and check the channel out. I really appreciate it if you do it. Works better if you do it than if I do it. It gets more people in. So thanks so much for any of you who can do that stuff. See you next time for more Hearts of Iron.